When you rise and allow your light to shine, when you begin to live in alignment with the deepest truth of your being, you will notice something strange. Instead of universal applause, instead of the gentle embrace of a world grateful that one more flame is kindled in its darkness, you will often feel the quiet rustling of resentment. Somewhere, unseen, another soul wishes you would stumble. This paradox that your radiance awakens both admiration and envy has accompanied humanity for centuries. Today, I want to invite you into this mystery, not merely as a social phenomenon, but as a psychological, archetypal, and spiritual truth that reveals the tension between light and shadow within every human heart. You must understand that every act of shining is not merely personal. It is archetypal. When you step into your light, you do not only illuminate yourself, you also cast light on the shadows of others, and shadows, by their very nature, recoil when exposed. This is why the act of becoming who you truly are is not a neutral gesture. It is a confrontation. It calls forth unconscious forces in others, even in those who love you. Their secret wish for your failure is not always conscious hatred. More often, it is the psyche's instinctive defense against its own neglected truth. You embody a possibility that they themselves have exiled, and so, instead of gratitude, you become the target of projections. I recall countless patients who came to me perplexed by this very experience. They would say, "Dr. Jung, I do not understand. When I begin to succeed, when I express my creativity, when I finally love myself enough to be visible, suddenly those closest to me withdraw, they grow cold, they criticize, some even sabotage me. Why?" And I would explain that the human soul is like a mirror. When you shine, you do not merely reveal your own face, you awaken dormant images in the other. You awaken both admiration and a terrible envy. In truth, the envy is a disguised longing. What they see in you is what they themselves desire, but have not dared to live. This is why we cannot speak of envy without also speaking of repression. For envy is not simply jealousy of another's possessions or talents, it is the shadow's recognition of its own unlived life. Every time you shine, you remind another of the life they refused, and what the conscious mind cannot integrate, it seeks to destroy outside of itself. Thus, they may want you to fail, not because you are hateful, but because your existence makes their self-betrayal unbearable. Consider the archetype of Cain and Abel. Abel shines, his sacrifice is accepted. His life aligned with a divine pattern. Cain, whose offering is not accepted, does not turn inward to discover why. Instead, he turns outward against his brother. The murder of Abel is the primordial symbol of envy turned into violence, but the deeper tragedy is not the killing itself, it is Cain's refusal to face his own rejected gift. And so envy always kills twice. It destroys the shining one, or at least attempts to, and it further estranges the envious soul from its own light. When you shine, you step into Abel's role. You become the mirror that others cannot bear. You will feel their silent resistance. Some may disguise it under smiles, others under piety, but you will know it by the subtle weight in the air, the cooling of warmth, the evasions, the half-spoken remarks that sting like poison. The question is, will you dim yourself to soothe their shadow, or will you hold fast to the truth that shining is not arrogance but obedience to your inner self? You must not think this is only about other people. The same law operates within your own psyche. There is within you a secret Cain who resents your own moments of greatness. There is a voice that whispers, do not risk shining too brightly. Do not rise too high. You will be struck down. This voice is not mere cowardice. It is the residue of ancient archetypal patterns. Humanity has always known that to stand out invites arrows. The tall tree is cut first. The prophet is rejected in his own land. Christ himself was crucified for daring to reveal the truth. Thus, deep within, you carry a fear that shining leads to betrayal. And this fear, if unexamined, becomes your own inner saboteur. What then is the task? It is to integrate both the shining and the shadow, to know that when you radiate, you stir the archetypal envy in others, and you must not take it personally. To recognize also that within you lives both the Abel who longs to offer his best and the Cain who resents his brother's success. If you deny either, you fall into unconsciousness. If you acknowledge both, you begin the work of individuation. Individuation is not about eliminating shadow, it is about making peace with it, bringing it into relationship with the self. Only then can you shine without arrogance and endure envy without bitterness. Let me tell you of a dream. A man dreamed he was climbing a mountain. At the summit, the sun shone so brilliantly that he felt he had become transparent, as if light poured through his body. But suddenly, from below, arrows shot toward him, piercing his flesh. He woke in terror, asking, "Why does success always feel like death?" I explained to him that the arrows were not literal enemies. They were projections of his own fear of exposure, his own belief that shining must provoke punishment. The dream taught him that part of him longed for light, while another part longed to remain hidden in the valley. Only by facing both could he continue climbing. And so it is for you. Every time you shine, you must expect arrows, whether from others or from your own unconscious. This is not a reason to stop. It is a reason to grow stronger. Your task is to recognize that the arrows are not truly aimed at you. They are aimed at the unbearable image of unlived potential that your light awakens. When you see this, you need not hate those who resent you. Instead, you may have compassion, for you understand that their hostility is born of pain. They wish you to fail because your success reminds them of their refusal to live. In this recognition, you may bless them silently, even as you guard your path. Do not misunderstand me. To have compassion does not mean to submit. Too often the shining one eager to keep harmony, dims their own flame so that others may feel comfortable. This is betrayal. The world does not need more shadows, it needs light. To hide your gift is to side with Cain against Abel, to collude with resentment against radiance. This is why the path of individuation demands courage. You must be willing to endure the loneliness of shining, for there will be times when your very presence feels like judgment to others, though you have spoken no word, and you will be tempted to apologize for existing. Resist this temptation. Your life is not meant to confirm the shadows of others. It is meant to embody the light entrusted to you. What is this light? It is not egoic superiority, not the shallow glow of vanity. It is the self, the living totality of your being, both conscious and unconscious, personal and archetypal. When you align with the self, you radiate not with borrowed light, but with your own essence. And this essence, once revealed, cannot be imitated by others. It is utterly unique. And uniqueness is intolerable to the collective mind, which prefers conformity. Thus, your individuation is always a threat to the herd. The collective wants you to play a role, to wear the mask of persona, to conform to the archetype of the good citizen, the obedient child, the loyal follower. But when you shed the mask and reveal the face beneath, you expose the collective lie, and this exposure stirs hostility. Therefore, every time you shine, you also expose the falseness of the masks around you. This is why people secretly want you to fail. It is not that they consciously desire your downfall. It is that your authenticity reveals their inauthenticity, and the psyche cannot endure such a wound without defense. The easiest defense is to wish that the shining one would stumble, that the mirror would break, that the light would dim, so they may rest again in their illusions. If you understand this, you will not be surprised by betrayal, nor will you take it personally. You will know it is archetypal, inevitable, and therefore survivable. We must now go deeper. Consider the archetype of the hero. The hero's journey is always accompanied by both helpers and enemies. But what are the enemies? They are not merely outer foes. They are the shadows, resistance to transformation. In every myth, the hero shines by slaying a dragon, by finding the treasure, by rescuing the maiden. But the dragon is always double-edged. It is both a real obstacle and a projection of the hero's own fear. And so it is with you. When you shine, the dragons rise not only in others, but in yourself. These dragons may take the form of criticism, slander, envy, betrayal, but their true purpose is to test your commitment to the self. Will you retreat or will you continue? And here lies the secret. The enemies are not merely obstacles, they are initiators. Every time someone envies you, you are given a chance to deepen your individuation. For envy forces you to ask, do I shine for applause? Or do I shine because I must? If you need applause, then envy will destroy you. But if you shine because it is your nature, then envy will purify you. You will learn to stand in your light without external confirmation. This is the ultimate initiation. To be loyal to the self, even when the world turns against you. In this sense, those who secretly wish you to fail are your teachers. They reveal whether your light is genuine or borrowed. They strip you of illusions. They force you to anchor yourself in the inner center, where no praise or blame can shake you. Thus, the paradox, the ones who envy you may also be the very ones who help you grow. If you can bless them for this hidden gift, then you transcend resentment. You no longer need them to applaud you, nor do you fear their arrows. You stand like the mountain in the dream, pierced yet radiant, enduring yet transparent. You may notice, as you walk further upon this path, that the more sincerely you live from your inner center, the sharper the contrast becomes with those around you who have not yet faced their own shadows. At first, you may think it is a misunderstanding, something that can be corrected by explanation, by kindness, by dialogue. But you will soon discover that this resistance is not rational. It is archetypal. You cannot reason with the archetypes. You can only recognize them, name them, and integrate your relationship to them. When someone secretly wants you to fail, what they are truly wrestling with is not you as a person, but the archetypal figure of the shining soul, the one who threatens the slumber of their shadow. This is why betrayal so often arrives when you least expect it. You may have a friend, a companion, perhaps even a lover, who once supported your growth. They encouraged you when you were struggling, but when your light grows too strong, when your uniqueness shines beyond the bounds of their comfort, you feel their support quietly turn into resentment. Why? Because as long as you were climbing, they could identify with your struggle. But once you ascend, once you embody a light, they cannot imitate. They are forced to confront their own refusal to ascend, and that confrontation is unbearable. It is easier to cut down the one who climbs than to face the terror of their own paralysis. This is the tragic drama of human relationships. We crave intimacy, but true intimacy is only possible between souls who both honor their light and face their shadow. Otherwise, intimacy becomes possession, envy disguised as love, control masquerading as care. Many patients confess to me the confusion they felt when their closest ones, instead of celebrating their achievements, subtly undermined them. And I would explain, do not be surprised. When you shine, you break the unconscious contract you once had with them, the contract to remain small, to remain predictable, to confirm their illusions. The moment you betray that contract by becoming more, you awaken in them the archetype of the betrayer. You must understand that betrayal itself is not merely personal malice. It is an archetypal pattern that appears whenever the self begins to emerge in one individual within a collective. Think of Christ and Judas. Judas was not merely an individual traitor. He embodied the archetype of betrayal that arises whenever divine light threatens the collective order. And so it will be with you when yourself begins to shine through your life. There will always be a Judas nearby. He may be disguised as a friend, as a confidant, perhaps even as part of your own psyche. But he will arise, for the pattern is eternal. Now, what shall you do when you meet your Judas? Many are tempted to rage, to despair, to close their hearts forever. But this only binds you to the betrayal. The deeper path is to see Judas not as an enemy but as an initiator. For without betrayal, the light cannot be tested. Without the wound, the self cannot reveal its strength. The betrayal is the crucible in which your radiance is purified from dependence on external affirmation. It forces you to anchor yourself in the eternal rather than the fleeting applause of men. To illustrate this, let us turn to the symbol of projection. Projection is one of the most powerful mechanisms of the unconscious. Whatever we cannot face in ourselves, we see in another. And so, when you shine, people project upon you their own unlived life, their own denied shadow, their own secret fear of insignificance. This is why their desire for your failure feels so piercing. It is not really about you, it is about them. You have become the screen upon which they project their disowned self, and here lies the danger. If you are unconscious, you will believe the projection. You will think, perhaps they are right, perhaps I should dim my light. But if you are conscious, you will recognize the projection for what it is. You will return it to its source, not with condemnation, but with clarity. You will say within your heart, this is not mine, this belongs to them, and by doing so, you free yourself from the spell. Dreams often reveal this dynamic. A woman once told me she dreamed of walking through a forest at night with a lantern. The lantern glowed so brightly that she could see the path ahead. But suddenly, shadowy figures emerged from the trees and tried to extinguish her lantern. She woke in fear, thinking the dream was a warning of enemies around her. Yet the dream was not external, it was internal. The shadowy figures were her own repressed fears, her own resistance to shining. The lantern was the self illuminating her path. The dream taught her that she must guard the flame not only from others, but from the saboteur within. You see, the greatest danger is not that others want you to fail. It is that you secretly agree with them. Somewhere deep inside, there is a part of you that believes you are unworthy of shining, a part that whispers it is safer in the dark. Do not provoke envy. Do not be seen. This is the inner traitor, the Judas within, and unless you face this part of yourself, you will always be vulnerable to the arrows of others. For what wounds you is not their envy, but your own resonance with it. Therefore, individuation demands that you confront this inner saboteur. You must look directly into the eyes of the voice that says, do not shine. And you must say, I see you. I understand your fear, but I will not obey you. This is not an act of violence against yourself. It is an act of integration. You acknowledge that the voice exists, but you do not give it the final word. You take back your authority from the shadow and return it to the self. Only then can you shine without fear, for you know that the deepest betrayal can only come from within. Let us go even deeper. At the heart of this mystery lies the archetype of the wounded healer. Why does the healer carry wounds? Because the wound itself becomes the source of compassion. And so it is with betrayal. When others secretly want you to fail, when you feel the sting of their envy, you are being initiated into the archetype of the wounded shining one. Your wound becomes your wisdom. You learn not to despise those who resent you for, their pain. You learn not to collapse under criticism, for you have faced the arrows before, and you learn that your light is not for applause, but for service. The world does not need perfect heroes. It needs wounded healers. Those who shine, not in spite of betrayal, but through it. Here lies the paradox. The more you integrate your wounds, the less others can harm you, for the arrows of envy only pierce where there is unhealed flesh. But when you have faced your shadow, when you have made peace with your fear, the arrows pass through you, like wind through a tree. You remain standing, rooted in the self, radiant with a light that no resentment can extinguish. This is not a solitary journey. Every myth, every religion, every culture has told the story of the shining one betrayed. Osiris slain by Set, Dionysus torn apart by the Titans, Christ crucified by his own people. These are not merely stories of the past. They are eternal patterns. To shine is to awaken betrayal. To awaken betrayal is to undergo death. But beyond death lies resurrection, transformation, rebirth. The betrayal is not the end of the story. It is the passage into greater wholeness. And so, when others secretly want you to fail, remember, you are walking a path walked by heroes, prophets, and gods. You are participating in a cosmic drama that transcends your individual life. Do not seek to avoid this drama. Do not shrink from shining in order to avoid envy. For if you do, you betray not only yourself but also the collective. The world is starving for light. Every soul who dims their flame for fear of betrayal contributes to the darkness of the whole. But every soul who dares to shine, even when arrows fly, becomes a beacon for others. Your courage liberates more than yourself. It awakens the courage in those who watch you. They may resent you at first, but eventually your example becomes their invitation, and perhaps one day the very ones who wished you to fail will thank you for showing them that shining is possible. This is why you must learn to endure loneliness. The shining path is often solitary. Few will celebrate you at first. Many will misunderstand. Some will betray, but do not measure your worth by their response. Measure it by the fidelity of your soul to the self. If you remain faithful, the right companions will find you, those who have also faced their shadow, those who can celebrate your light without envy, because they have embraced their own. This is the true community, the communion of individuated souls. It is rare, but it exists, and until you find it, you must walk with the invisible companionship of archetypes, with the presence of the self, with the eternal assurance that shining is your destiny. Do not forget that the self is not only light, but also shadow. To integrate the self means to accept both radiance and darkness, both admiration and envy, both love and betrayal. If you cling only to light, you become naive. If you cling only to shadow, you become bitter. But if you hold both, you become whole. And wholeness is the true goal of individuation. Not success, not applause, not safety, but wholeness. To be whole is to be free from the tyranny of both praise and blame. To live in harmony with your inner center, regardless of the outer storms. As you walk further into the mystery of shining, you begin to realize that envy is not merely a private emotion contained within individuals. It is a current that moves through the collective unconscious. Entire group, nations, and cultures may direct envy toward those who embody what the group represses. History is filled with examples: the persecution of prophets, the exile of visionaries, the silencing of artists whose voices disrupted the comfort of the herd. The collective shadow, once stirred, does not merely wish for the failure of the individual, it demands it. It requires the sacrifice of the Shining One in order to restore its fragile illusion of unity. This is why so many who dare to live fully were cast out by their societies. The collective could not bear the mirror of their authenticity. The collective shadow operates much like the personal shadow. What is denied within the group must be projected upon an outsider, and so, when you shine, you may suddenly find yourself treated as dangerous, even if you intended no harm. You have become the vessel of the group's repressed truth. They cannot face their own mediocrity, their own cowardice, their own disconnection from the self, so they project it upon you, the one who dares to live differently. They will say you are arrogant, delusional, even evil. But beneath their words lies the archetypal dynamic, the fear of the self. For your light does not merely reveal your individuality. It hints at the presence of a greater reality that the collective mind cannot control. Let us turn to a symbolic example. In many myths, when the hero returns with the treasure, the people do not immediately welcome him. Often they reject him, mock him, or fear him. Why? Because the treasure represents transformation, and transformation always threatens the status quo. The collective prefers the familiar misery of its old patterns to the uncertainty of new life. Thus, the Shining One becomes a threat. His success is not merely personal, it is archetypal. It reveals possibilities that the group is not ready to embrace, and so the group unconsciously wishes for his failure so that they may remain undisturbed in their slumber. This is why the individuation process is so demanding. To individuate is not only to confront your personal shadow, but also to bear the projections of the collective shadow. It is to stand as a mirror not only for individuals, but for entire communities. And this requires immense strength, for the collective will often punish what it secretly desires. It will crucify the very ones it later builds temples for. Think of Christ, of Socrates, of countless martyrs whose deaths were later sanctified by the very societies that rejected them. This paradox reveals the split nature of the collective psyche. It both envies and venerates the shining one. It both wishes for his failure and longs for his light. What then shall you do when the collective resists you? You must first recognize that this is not about you as an individual ego. It is about the archetype of the self manifesting through you. You are not the light itself. You are a vessel for the light. If you confuse yourself with the light, you will either grow arrogant or collapse under the weight of rejection. But if you understand that you are serving something greater than yourself, you can endure the envy and hostility of the collective with humility. You will know that their rejection is not of you, but of the archetype you embody. And this knowledge gives you freedom. You need not retaliate, nor collapse. You simply continue to serve the self. This requires discernment, for not all resistance is malicious. Sometimes the collective resists because it must assimilate slowly. Too much light, too quickly, can destroy. Consider the myth of Semele, who demanded to see Zeus in his full glory and was burned to ashes by the sight. The collective psyche, like the individual, must grow gradually into greater consciousness. If you shine too brightly, too suddenly, you may overwhelm those around you. This does not mean you should dim yourself permanently, but it does mean you must learn the art of timing. To shine wisely is not to force the light upon others, but to embody it patiently, allowing those who are ready to approach and those who are not to remain in their shadows until they are prepared. Yet even with patience, you cannot avoid the envy of those who do not wish to grow. Some souls cling to their shadow as if it were life itself. For them, your light will always be intolerable. This is why discernment also means knowing where to share your radiance and where to keep silence. Not everyone can receive your truth. Some will twist it, others will attack it. Still others will pretend to embrace it while secretly undermining it. To be wise is to recognize that shining does not mean indiscriminate exposure. Even Christ spoke of not casting pearls before swine. The light must be guarded as well as revealed. To shine is also to protect. Let us now explore the psychological meaning of becoming a mirror. When you shine, you become a living reflection for others' unlived potential. This is why their envy is so sharp. It is the pain of seeing in you what they have buried in themselves. But there is another side to this. Just as you awaken envy, you also awaken longing. Not everyone who sees your light will secretly wish you to fail. Some will recognize in you the spark of their own buried self. They will feel drawn, inspired, even liberated. In this way, your shining becomes a catalyst for their own individuation. The same light that awakens envy in some awakens courage in others, and you cannot control which reaction you will evoke. Your task is only to shine, to be faithful to the self, and to trust that the light will do its work. This dual reaction, envy in some, inspiration in others, is inevitable. You cannot have one without the other. If you desire only admiration, you will be disappointed. If you fear only envy, you will remain paralyzed. But if you accept both as natural responses to light, you will no longer be bound by them. You will know that envy is not proof of your failure, nor is admiration proof of your worth. Both are simply mirrors of others' inner states. Your worth lies not in their reactions, but in your fidelity to your own soul. This is the essence of individuation, to live from the center of the self, independent of the fluctuations of collective opinion. Here lies a great secret. The more you shine, the less you will need others to approve. At first, the desire for recognition is strong. You want your light to be seen, your efforts to be celebrated. But as you grow, you realize that the true joy of shining lies not in being admired, but in being authentic. When you are fully yourself, when you embody the self without compromise, you experience a deep peace that no praise can add to and no envy can take away. This is the inner freedom that individuation brings. It is the freedom of being whole. Let me share another dream. For dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. A man dreamed he was carrying a torch through a city at night. People gathered around him, some cheering, others booing, some trying to snuff out the torch. He grew anxious, wondering if he should put the torch away. But suddenly, a voice spoke from within the torch itself. "You are not carrying me. I am carrying you." The man awoke, trembling. The dream revealed the truth. The light does not belong to him. He belongs to the light. His task is not to manage the reactions of others, but to remain faithful to the flame. And so it is with you. When you shine, remember that you are not the origin of the light. The self carries you. Your only responsibility is to guard the flame and walk the path. This realization changes everything. For when you understand that the light is not yours, you no longer need to defend it with ego. You can endure criticism without collapsing, envy without bitterness, admiration without vanity. You become a vessel transparent to the self. And in this transparency lies your true strength. The collective may resist you, individuals may betray you, but you remain anchored in something eternal. The flame within you cannot be extinguished by outer shadows, for it is not of this world. It is archetypal, eternal, divine, and yet to live this truth requires constant vigilance. The ego will always try to claim the light as its own. It will whisper, "Look how brightly I shine. Look how admired I am." And as soon as the ego claims the light, it becomes vulnerable again to envy, for the ego cannot endure criticism. It cannot survive betrayal. Only the self can. This is why the path of individuation demands humility. True shining is not egoic brilliance, but the humble transparency of the soul aligned with the self. You shine not to glorify yourself, but to serve the wholeness of life. And in serving wholeness, you transcend the pettiness of envy. In the end, every time you shine, someone will secretly want you to fail. This is inevitable. But the secret is this: their desire has no power over you unless you consent to it. The only betrayal that can truly wound you is your own betrayal of the self. As long as you remain faithful, the envy of others cannot touch your essence. It may wound your ego, it may isolate you, it may strip you of companions, but it cannot extinguish your flame. For the flame is eternal, and it belongs to the self. Therefore, let the envy of others remind you of your responsibility. You are a mirror. Whether you wish it or not, you awaken both longing and resentment. Accept this. Do not shrink from it. And do not imagine that you can control it. Simply shine and let the light do its work. Some will hate you, some will love you, but both are responses to the same radiance. Your task is only to remain faithful, to continue carrying the flame, to walk the path of individuation with courage and humility. As we draw deeper into this exploration, you begin to sense the paradox at the heart of existence. The very act of shining, of embodying the self, both isolates and liberates you. It isolates you because few can bear the mirror of your authenticity, and so you feel the loneliness of walking where many fear to tread. Yet it liberates you because you are no longer enslaved to the shifting moods of others, no longer trapped by their envy or their applause. You discover that true freedom is not to be adored, nor to be protected from malice, but to be whole within yourself. This wholeness does not come cheaply. It requires you to die to many illusions. The illusion that shining will bring universal love, the illusion that success will guarantee safety, the illusion that authenticity will be celebrated. You must let these illusions fall away, for they are childish hopes. The adult soul knows that shining always casts a shadow, and that in every shadow lies the seed of betrayal. To accept this is not to grow bitter, but to grow wise. It is to understand that life moves in polarities, that every light awakens darkness, every ascent provokes resistance, every revelation demands a crucifixion before resurrection. Do not think of crucifixion only in the religious sense. It is a universal archetype, the image of the soul pierced by the envy of others, abandoned by the crowd it once fed, mocked by the very voices that once praised it. You will experience this in your own way, perhaps not upon a literal cross, but in the cross of misunderstanding, in the silence of those who withdraw their affection, in the sting of those who betray you in secret. And in those moments you will ask, why must it be so? Why does shining bring with it this pain? The answer is that shining is not for comfort, it is for transformation. When you embody yourself, you cease to live for the shallow security of social approval. You live instead for the truth that wells up from the depths of your soul. And truth is always disruptive. It unmasks illusions, it challenges complacency. It change, the collective, and even your closest companions may resist this change with all their might. Their secret wish for your failure is their attempt to stop the transformation you embody. But you must not yield to this resistance, for your light is not yours alone. It is part of the great process by which consciousness itself evolves. Think of the alchemists, those strange and symbolic forebears of psychology. They spoke of the nigredo, the blackening, in which all that was false had to dissolve before the new substance could emerge. When you shine, you invoke the nigredo in others. Your light exposes the darkness they have hidden. They may hate you for it. They may wish you would fail, so they can return to the comfort of their illusions. But if you endure their hatred without collapsing, something extraordinary happens. The very darkness that rose against you becomes the material of their own transformation. You become an alchemical catalyst, not because you lecture or persuade, but because you embody the union of opposites, light and shadow, betrayal and fidelity, loneliness and wholeness. This is why I say, do not shrink from envy, do not shrink from betrayal. They are not signs that you are on the wrong path, they are signs that you are on the path of individuation. If no one resents your light, it may be because your light is still hidden. If no one wishes you to fail, it may be because you have not yet dared to embody your full self. The presence of envy, the sting of betrayal, the loneliness of shining, these are not curses. They are confirmations. They mean you are alive to your destiny. And what is that destiny? It is not to live in safety, nor to win universal love. It is to become whole, to become who you truly are, to let the archetype of the self manifest through you. When you live from the center, you realize that success and failure are not opposites. Both serve the same process. For even when you stumble, even when the envy of others seems to pull you down, the self uses the fall for your growth. Failure is only fatal when you interpret it through the ego's eyes, through the eyes of the self. Even betrayal, even rejection, becomes initiation. I once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But I might add, the cost of this privilege is to bear the envy of those who refuse the same journey. Yet if you bear it faithfully, you discover something greater than privilege. You discover freedom, freedom not from suffering, but from bondage to the opinions of others, freedom not from loneliness, but from the fear of it, freedom not from envy, but from the illusion that it can diminish you. So when you shine and someone secretly wishes for your failure, what must you do? You must look beyond them, see in their eyes not a personal enemy, but the shadow that still reigns within them. Do not hate them, for they are mirrors of your own past struggles. Do not yield to them, for your flame is needed. Do not argue with them, for the unconscious cannot be convinced by words. Simply shine, hold your flame steadily, and if they cannot bear it, allow them to turn away. The self will draw to you those who are ready, those who will not envy but awaken, those who will not betray but stand beside you in their own light. Remember, too, that envy itself can be transformed in its raw form. It is destructive, a wish for the downfall of the other. But if the envious soul faces the truth, envy can become admiration, and admiration can become inspiration. Your shining, though resisted at first, may one day become the spark that awakens them. And so, though you may never know it, your courage to endure envy may save another soul from lifelong shadow. This is the hidden purpose of betrayal. It forces you into deeper authenticity. And this is the hidden purpose of envy. It prepares the envious for transformation. You are part of a vast web of archetypal movements, each soul reflecting, wounding, and healing the other. To live in this awareness is to step into the sacred dimension of psychology, where every personal drama is also cosmic, every private wound also mythic. Let me end with this image. Imagine yourself standing in a vast cavern, holding a torch. Around you are countless figures. Some approach with open hands, longing for light. Others shrink back, hissing in resentment. Still others throw stones, wishing to break the torch. Your instinct may be to extinguish the flame, to return to the safety of darkness. But then you realize you are not the torch-bearer alone. You are the torch itself. The flame is not something you hold, it is something you are. And to extinguish it would be to betray your very soul, so you continue to shine. Some will hate you for it. Some will love you. But the flame is not diminished by their reactions. It burns because it must. It burns because it is eternal. And as you walk with this flame, you join the great procession of souls who dared to live as themselves, souls who endured envy, betrayal, loneliness, yet who never betrayed the self. This is your path. Walk it with courage, walk it with humility, and above all, walk it with fidelity to the flame that carries you. For every time you shine, someone will secretly want you to fail. But every time you shine, you also awaken another who is waiting to remember their own light. And that, my friends, is how the world is transformed. Not by avoiding envy, but by enduring it, transmuting it, and letting the flame of the self shine all the brighter